Good morning from Vietnam. So Young, thanks a lot for spending your morning to join our program Inside Sharing and share your stories with our global audience. And on behalf of the listeners around the world, I want to say thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
And so Young, since in our culture, it's a great honor if we can have you to do a little introduction about who you are and the works that you do. Would you please do that for us?
Sure. Well, my name is So Young Kang. I'm the founder and CEO of Gnowbe, which stands for Grow Knowledge into Being. And just a quick story is I am really passionate about human flourishing and how we can use technology and people in ways to humanize the world.
Wow, you have a phenomenal journey, but you introduced this to us in less than 40 seconds. So, Young, we're going to dive in deeper into this conversation to know how the journey takes you to what you are doing today. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
All right, so let's travel time. When I was a little, I always wanted to become an astronaut, and wearing the jumpsuit to jump in different planets seemed so cool, but life didn't give me any chance to do anything like that so young. So I want to understand, when you was little, what was your dream about your future, Adam?
Well, I think it depends. I think as a kid, you have many kinds of dreams, right? And
Yeah.
so I think there were dreams of being a musician. So I started playing the piano when I was 4 years old. And so music has always been part of my life. So I think I had a dream that I would be a performer and that I would perform music. And I've been performing on stage since I was young as well. So I guess I always saw myself on stage performing music. So that was one kind of dream. I think there were other dreams as well in terms of, and I had this dream when I was 10 years old. I think I was 10. I grew up in New York, and I still remember this image. And I was walking, and there's big skyscrapers in New York. So in this skyscraper, I was carrying this briefcase, and I was going up the elevator to this big skyscraper and a really, really tall building. So I go into this tall building and I go into the corner, and there's all the windows. It's a glass window office, corner office, and inside my office is a grand piano. And in my image, I knew that that was my office. So it was a big office, and it was a grand piano in the middle of my office. And I had my little briefcase, and I walked in. I didn't know what I did, but for some reason, I knew that I would be doing business. And I didn't know exactly what kind of business I would do. And that was as a young child. So kind of interesting, like the different dreams that we have as kids. And I still think about that image of what I had. Obviously, I'm not in New York, and not in a big skyscraper, but I think I have pursued business as an adult. So it's interesting how that little dream became reality.
Well, that 10 years old girl so young had that moment, and then she realized that she wanted to be a businessman. But I want to bring you back into that moment. How did how did you realize that one day you're going to become a businessman at that 10 years old at that very specific building though?
I don't think I actually knew that I didn't even know what business was. I think when you're 10, you don't really understand these things. So I like to create things. And so even when I was young, I always liked to create and build things. So with my friends, we would make our own games. And then with my classmates, we made our own club. So when we were in primary sixth or sixth grade, we made our own club. And then we had a rotating model of leadership for this little club. It was like a little girl sorority.
Mm.
And we did that when we were like 11 years old, right? So I think since I was very young, I always liked to build things, create things, and do this with other people. And so I think that probably was the seed of what would of course help me in life as an adult in business. And I think the idea of being able to dream about something, an idea, and then bring
Mm.
it to reality was something that was really important, even then and even now for sure.
Beautiful. So tell us how that journey took place from that 10 years old dreaming about future that you're going to build the business, right? And then taking to the place of, through the university time and to today. Share with us more about that journey and so on.
Oh, sure. So I think after that, of course, you forget about those dreams. Those are just like dreams you have as a kid, right? And I don't really understand what business is. Although I liked making money, so that is true. So since I was 11 years old, I started teaching piano lessons,
Ah,
and so I made a lot of money teaching piano. So by the time I was 17, I had 10 students, ages between 4 and 80 years old. And so I didn't need to get a part-time job because teaching piano was my part-time job. And I
ah,
think this is really important because I was managing my clients, my students,
uh-huh.
and then I was also learning different kinds of styles of how to motivate these kids to practice.
Mm,
Of course, a lot of kids don't want to practice piano, right? And so they would come to the lesson and they would not have practiced. So it was really like I had to try different techniques, stickers, encouragement, fear, guilt, shame. I had to use all kinds of different techniques to get them to practice. And
ah,
so I think I really learned a lot. And now, now that I'm talking to you, I'm realizing how that's really helped me in what I do today, actually. So I did that as a kid, and then I went to university, and then I guess as I started to work, whether it was in any job, even my first job in Japan, I think I applied those same principles. Like I would see something that needed to be done, and I would just do it, and I wouldn't really think about. Yeah, I didn't really think about whether I'm allowed to do it or not allowed to do it. I would just do it because it was
ah.
needed to be done. So I think that those principles have definitely followed me from childhood all the way through every job I've had, whether it's Citibank in New York, whether I was building a new business for Citibank, the Asian business in the tri-state New York area, or even founding my two companies. So I think it's been a common theme.
Mm. So young. And from there, I believe that each of us have a moment of transformation. So your moment of transforming happened somewhere in your life that create a passion for human flourishing. Tell us when did that happen, could you?
Yeah, I think there are many moments, in life where you have crossroad moments. I call them like there's like the crossroad moments where you can either go this way and then that totally changes the trajectory of your life. So I've had many of those, of course, over my life. But I had one particular moment in November 2008, and that was a transformational experience.
Mm.
I will never forget that day and what I was doing, but I had a very powerful spiritual encounter. And when I had that very spiritual encounter, with God, I'm a Christian, is that was a moment. It was about a 10, it felt like a 20-minute, but it was probably less conversation where I really was challenged to find my calling and purpose, which was to really help with human flourishing, help them to develop, help them to become better versions of themselves, whether individually or in an organization or in a system.
Mm.
So that was that moment when I think I started to awaken to my greater calling.
So young. Describe that moment, first, would you, in that 2008, where were you? What happened at that moment that, that awakened you, the passion inside of you?
Sure. So I was in Los Angeles. So I used to live on the beach, not unlike the view behind me. I used to live right on the Pacific Ocean. And so very inspiring. I love the beach and I love the water. So I was working for McKinsey at the time. And, I don't know if you remember, but in the fall of 2008, we had a massive global crisis, financial crisis.
Yep.
So Lehman Brothers, all these banks and things were collapsing and many people were losing their jobs. So many of my classmates and friends in the finance sector were losing their jobs. I was at McKinsey in consulting, and there was also fear that there was going to be layoffs, but there was just fear everywhere.
Mm.
And so the context of this was that people were holding on to their jobs as much as they could for fear of getting laid off, or there was a very, very topsy-turvy time. And at that time, I had already been given an offer. So I had an offer to join a hedge fund in Connecticut, one of the
Mm.
top hedge funds in the world. And so I was given an offer. So I was really comfortable because I had my offer. I
Uh,
was planning to resign from McKinsey and move on to this hedge fund. So that was my plan. And then this encounter happened, which completely disrupted all of my plans. So I was in Los Angeles, loving LA, considering moving back to the East Coast where I grew up in around New York, Connecticut area. So all of that was what my plan was. And then that plan was disrupted through this really personal encounter. And that totally changed the trajectory of my life until now.
Wow, wow. And then a lot of people had the awakening moment also so young, but then they forget about it and they ignore it and they don't do anything about it. But you took actions on it, and then I think that is the for the reason that you create the awaken group, and then after that is to create a lot of new products to change the world, right? Tell us, what the motivation for that young, so young, to push the boundary and take action though.
Um, I sometimes you feel so compelled
Mm,
by a purpose or by a calling that you can't deny it.
mm,
So I was so compelled. I felt I had no choice but to pursue it. And the first step is always the hardest step
yeah.
because I was really scared. I was insecure. The global economic crisis had happened. Quit my job, declined this amazing job offer from this hedge fund to where I would make a ton of money and have security, and then go pursue what, like, this company, this leadership company that would become Awaken. I'm like, really? I felt really uncomfortable and nervous, and it was terrifying to, in some ways, surrender like my life in some ways to this greater calling. And
Mm,
that was really hard. So it wasn't easy. It's not like I said, okay, sure, I'm going to go do that and jump to the next step and then go, here's my 30-day plan. Like, no, it wasn't like that at all. It was extremely difficult. And it was really scary. And I actually, as I embarked on this journey to start to build and to walk into my calling, I wasn't ready. So I
mm,
had to do a lot of self work. I cried a lot the first 6 months on this journey.
wow.
So, I cried as I was learning about who I wanted to be as a person, as a human, not about my company, what company I was going to start, but who am I? What is my real purpose? What are my values? What kind of person do I want to be in this world? And what kind of value do I want to add? And so I think really taking the time to do very deep reflection about my character um, was way, 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 way more important than anything I would do in terms
Ah,
of the products and services that I would build. So that was not an easy journey. It wasn't a 3-year plan. I used to work for McKinsey, so I know how to do strategy. So I
ah,
didn't have like this clear strategy laid out for my life. But I embarked on a journey, and the hardest part was the first step
ah,
of saying, I'm going to now, like, let's say there's a crossroad, right? The hardest part is just deciding, do I go left, right, left, right, left, right? Then I finally make a decision to go this way. But in this case, I had to jump off a cliff. So it wasn't even just moving. I had to jump off the cliff to go on this next path. So the hardest part was jumping off the cliff
mm,
on this other path. And then once you jump, then you're on that path. And then you're like, oh my gosh, no turning back now. Then you keep walking. And so I think that initial jump was extremely terrifying, very hard, which is why, like you said, many people don't do it because
mm,
it's really hard to do. It's hard to leave behind what is known to
yeah,
embrace what is unknown.
yeah. Was there anybody with you in that journey for the first 6 months of crying and realizing who you are?
Yes, I mean, I could not do this by myself. There's no
Ah,
way. I think it was too overwhelming. I was very blessed. I had 4 mentors who
ah,
are like leadership gurus, and from different parts of the world, and had different life experiences that all came together and coached me in different ways. And so I'm just incredibly grateful for those 4 amazing humans who invested, poured into me, journeyed with me, challenged me. I still remember one of my mentors, he was like, oh, you're still not quite there yet. Huh? What? Where am I supposed to be? Like in terms of your level of consciousness. I said, what, like, what do you mean consciousness? What do you mean I'm not conscious, you know? And really like struggling, you know, against myself, but
Mm.
having people who were honest in love. So they were honest with me in love and care of me. And I'm very, very grateful that they believed in me enough to do that.
Wow. Since you've been experienced that special moment, awakening moment, and can you share with us, because a lot of listeners out there would love to know who they are and to have that awakened moment and also. So what is the baby steps that I should take or the audience should take for us to know who we truly are though?
Yeah, I think it's a lifelong journey.
Mm.
I can't say I know fully who I am today. I hope and I pray that today I'm a better version of myself than 14 years ago when I started my journey. And
Ah.
I hope that I will continue this journey, you know, until, you know, I leave the earth, right? So I think that the idea is to continue the journey. So embarking on it is a process, it's a journey. And so if you think of it as a destination, then you will fail because once you get there, then what? Then you
Mm.
get there, then what, right? So I think the idea of understanding it's a process and a journey is really important. And
Mm.
then anyone can start today. You don't have to wait until you have all these achievements or all these things done. You can start today. And starting today is knowing who you, asking yourself questions about your purpose, why
Mm.
you do what you do, who do you want to be, what are your values. So those are the questions that I started to grapple with, and not in a superficial way, not in a, oh, my values are collaboration because together everyone is better. I mean, these are like values that we talk about in society, but many of us don't practice and live.
Mm. Wow.
So it's really about being super honest with yourself and then getting people around you. The people around you know you really well,
Yep.
right? They will be very, very honest mirrors to you, and they will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly if you are willing and have the humility to listen to the ugly.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, so it can start with just that.
Wow. So are you still keep in contact with your four mentors?
Of course, yeah, of course.
How do they talk about your transforming journey? Did they tell you about that?
Um, no, I think we've become friends, you know, over the years.
Uh,
So I guess we don't talk so much about who I was before and who I am now, because actually some of them didn't know who I was before the journey.
uh,
They kind of came into my life. But one of them, I guess, interestingly enough, it was our 7th anniversary party for Awaken Group, and he was a guest speaker. And I was quite, I think, moved and blessed by what he shared on the journey, and kind of how he had really seen me grow as a leader, but
mm,
also how he was also challenged and blessed by, I guess, what he called my faith and courage to jump into this unknown space,
mm,
and how that actually inspired him. So it was, I think, you know, relationships are like that. You mentor someone, but they end up mentoring you, and you coach people, and you know, and they help you as well. So it becomes kind of a blessing for both people.
beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, you grow up as the with the mentality of building and creating things, and I want to bring you to the moment that you're creating Gnowbe. All right, because I really touched by your ambition to to have 1 billion people on earth, so that's 1/8 of our populations, right? And using the technology to disrupt and create human flourishing. So at what moment in your life that the idea of creating Gnowbe, to start forming?
I think I was at Awaken Group when we were doing these transformation programs. And we kept thinking there has to be technology to help us to scale our impact.
Mm.
So I don't think I realized that there was a problem in the way we were communicating. It was not conscious to me
Ah.
because I'm so used to communicating using PowerPoint or email or videos or audio podcasts. Like we're used to this form of communication. So no one would tell you there's a problem with it because you never notice it, right?
Yeah.
But we came to a point with Awaken that we wanted to scale the impact. So when we do transformation work, you tend to work with like maybe, the top leaders of the company, but they might have 10,000 employees.
Mm.
How do you transform and bring 10,000 people along with you on a journey? Podcast, you do maybe focus group, you do a blast, all hands meeting, you videotape the CEO talking to the, you know what I mean? It's very difficult to get 10,000 people to align with you. So that's when we realized we need to find, I'm sure there are technology solutions we can find that will help us with this better. So we went to search for some technology solutions.
Mm.
And my team came up empty-handed.
Wow.
They said they're learning management systems. And I said, oh, okay, let's use one of those. Oh, they want me to just do videos of myself talking and then you just one-way communicate it out with some quizzes? I was like, no, we're not going to do that.
Mm.
And so all these platforms and technologies that my team were finding were still one-way communication. You do not transform people through one-way communication.
Yeah.
It's impossible. You transform through engaging and inviting them to participate in a conversation with you and getting them to apply and practice what you've talked about. That's how transformation begins. You asked me about how I started my transformation journey. If I had listened to my mentors, like lecture or talk at me, and I just sat there, took notes, and nodded my head, there would be zero transformation.
Right.
The transformation starts when I go, let me understand that. Let me talk to you and grapple with you on these issues. And then let me take one step and one action. Let me take two actions. Let me take three actions, right? And then as I start to take these actions to apply what I'm learning, this is when the transformation journey begins. It doesn't begin with knowing the principles. Many people who are watching this podcast or listening, they know the principles, but there's no change, right?
Yeah.
It comes in the application, which is why Gnowbe stands for grow knowledge into being. Knowledge is just the catalyst and the beginning. But in order to truly learn, grow, transform, you have to then think about the content, apply it, and then share it, just like we're sharing right now.
Mm.
And then when you do that every single day, you start to be transformed and to change, to grow, to walk into your purpose and to walk into doing amazing things.
So you as a creator of Gnowbe, right? What is your dream for Gnowbe? If they can help people to flourish, what is that going to be in your creating vision?
Yeah. And this is interesting because I think we've evolved as well as a company. So in
Mm.
the beginning, when we started the company, we said, okay, we want to have great content and then deliver great content delivered in a way that will help our learners grow their knowledge into being, right? Through
Mm.
practicing. So we partner with amazing thought leaders and then we give them the content. So we've started there. But we realized that by doing that, it would take a bit too long. So what we really wanted to do is, and to reach billions of people, who is the most important person who holds the key? It's the people creating the content.
Mm.
It's the teachers, it's the trainers, it's the speakers, it's the authors, it's the thought leaders, it's the managers, it's the leaders, it's the people like you and me, right? They're
Mm.
the people who are creating the content. So then if we could empower these people, then we can have an amplifier effect because each of these people, these creators would bring their own audiences and they
Mm.
would impact the lives of their people, right? So in every country, in every nation, every language, right?
Mm.
So with that, then we could have amplifier effects. So we decided to focus more on empowering the creators, the people who are designing by giving them much better, easier to use tools so they can design these transformational experiences.
Mm.
So that's when we shifted our strategy and focus to the creator.
Wow.
Actually, we're still in the process of shifting ing. So this is part of educating the market that we have now evolved to a creator to focus on the creators.
Wow. Wow. So young. When I listen to your stories, it's always a powerful force from within of you to push the boundaries, try to create something new, try to expand and create impact, right? How could you find the energies and the strength to bear all of that hard work, all of that challenges, and make your impacts?
It's hard. I don't know if I manage my energy very well, but I think in general, I think when I have a really clear sense of my purpose, that drives me through the difficult periods. Because as an entrepreneur, you have highs and you have lows, and
Mm,
lows, right? And so you have all this. It's an emotional roller coaster. So I think really being able to get back to be grounded in why I do what I do,
mm,
is what kind of keeps me. And then having good people around you who will journey with you. When you're down, they're up, they lift you up. When I'm up, I lift them up. So I think having a community of people is really important who share the same heart and vision. And then, I pray a lot. So I think from my faith plays a really big part of my journey.
mm,
And I really do pray a lot to, keep myself very centered on what really matters.
mm. Well, so
What
yeah, go ahead, please.
Now, I was going to say what I build is, I would say, less important than who I am.
Mm. It's easy to realize a person when they're in the high, right? But I'm curious to know how would So Young be when she at the low point in her feelings. Would you share with us?
Sure, good questions. You probably should ask the people around me how I am, but I think, and that has evolved over time too. I think in my low times, I could become very like uh, reclusive, where I just, don't talk a lot, or I stay, with myself.
Uh,
Um, I have been depressed before. And so I think, as a founder, and after my father passed away very suddenly, I had a 2-year depression. And so, if you ask how was I at that time, I didn't talk to anyone. I was not social. Next, you can tell I'm a very social person. I like to talk to people. But during that 2-year depression, I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't go out. I did not socialize. I did the bare minimum to survive and to do my work. And so I was what you would call functionally depressed.
mm,
And in functional depression, I was able to do the functions of, being a founder, CEO, I was raising money, doing pitches. I was still meeting clients and doing all that. But there was no joy behind what I was doing. I was just going through the motions. And so, I was quite, I think, reclusive, and I didn't really see. At 5 o'clock on Friday, I would go home, or 6, whatever time was, and I would see no one until Monday morning.
wow.
So
And,
yeah, that was one version of what it could look like.
and how did you help yourself to get out of that, period?
Um, you know, it's a good question. I didn't even know I was depressed, actually, because I was very functional. And I think many people are functionally depressed, but they don't even realize it, like myself.
Mm,
So, because I was still functioning, right? And I was still going to work and doing things and all that. Um, I didn't really. So one day I was feeling sorry for myself. And I was thinking, oh, I'm a terrible leader. Oh, I've not accomplished much in life. Oh, I'm such a failure. And I was having a very negative spiral,
mm,
moment. And then I was blaming God. I was like, God, why did you bring me to Singapore? I'm not even Singaporean. I'm American. Why did you, have this conversation with me? Why did you have me start these companies? And oh, I'm such a failure, and I'm, blah blah blah. So I was just like blah blah blah,
uh,
and as I was doing that, I have this journal that I have kept, and I felt compelled to read my journal. So I
mm,
picked up my journal and I started to read the entries in this journal, and then I started to cry.
mm,
And I started to cry because I was so grateful that some of the things that I had written in my journal, and like prayer requests, things that I needed, and this is now over 10 years, I could look back and I could see how beautifully they had been fulfilled in my life in
oh,
ways that I could never have even imagined, because I'm now looking back in time.
wow.
And that I felt so grateful for all of the blessings and where I had been, the impact that, I've been allowed to have. the privilege of being able to partner with certain people. Like, and I just felt so grateful and blessed of all of the amazing things that had happened actually over that period of time. And so as I looked up in gratitude, I saw blue sky.
Mm.
And then I realized, wait, was it sunny yesterday? And I couldn't remember. I was like,
Oh,
was it a blue sky the day before? Was it sunny the day before that? Last week? Last month? And because I couldn't remember, I realized, oh, where have I been? Where have I
right.
been these last 2 years? And then I realized I had been in depression. So, but the moment I looked up and I saw the blue sky and I was in gratitude, the depression just went away.
Wow. Wow.
And I call it like I went from navel gazing, navel, like looking at, oh my gosh, oh me, oh I'm terrible, I suck, I'm imperfect and blah blah blah. I make all these mistakes. And the moment I moved from that position and I looked up and I was like, thank you, God, for providing everything in my life. Then there was no room for depression. It went away.
Yeah. Wow. So Young, I put in here a note I want to ask you. Okay. So thanks a lot for sharing, all that personal, stories behind this. And then from that moment of gratitude, then you start to, create a lot more things that impactful in life, right? I want to understand a definition of a creator like you in terms of human flourishing. What does it look like to you, though?
I think the idea of human flourishing is different, for every single individual. Each
Mm,
of us are created uniquely with our own unique talents and strengths.
mm,
The path and the journey that we all take will be unique and different and beautiful in our own way.
mm,
So the idea of human flourishing is to awaken that understanding of the unique gifts and talents that we all have, and then the ability to be able to bring those pieces together, weave it together to do amazing things together, because there are things that we can never do alone that we can only do together. So I think the idea of human flourishing is the idea that we all come together with our different talents, our unique parts of the puzzle,
mm,
and be able to collaborate for the solving of humanity's
mm,
issues, right? I mean, we have all the capacity in the world to solve hunger, poverty, homelessness, mental health. We have the capacity. If we were to bring all of our unique talents and strengths together, we'd be able to solve every crisis we're facing in the world today.
beautiful. And I
And
believe that one too. Yeah.
yeah, so human flourishing is when we have the consciousness of the greatness that is inside, and then the humility to then collaborate and bring that to the table with other people, to do something good with that.
Wow. Beautiful. I have a few last questions for you. Let's travel time again. All right. So Young, if you are now travel time to meet the 10 years old so young at that skyscraper, right? And with the briefcase and look at the grand piano, right? In the room, what would you tell her? What is one advice that you want to talk to that so young though?
Wow, your questions are so good. They make me really think. Um, I would give her a hug.
Mm, and
I would
why?
I would give her a really, really, really big hug. And I would tell her that she is loved and that her value comes not from what she can do, but from who she will be.
Wow.
And I would encourage her to fully embrace all that she is.
Wow. And why would you decided to do that?
Because that 10-year-old child was very broken and had a very, very tough environment. And that 10-year-old child was um, thought that the only way that she could survive and escape and add value was to be the best at everything she did. And she thought that all of it was based on her accomplishments, not on her character.
Wow.
That child was a very, very broken child. And that child was never felt safe and did not feel the freedom to be her full self.
Wow. I'm tough. I'm touched. Thanks for sharing. All right.
You're making me cry now. So I'm holding back my tears at the moment.
I know I can feel that, and it makes me feel a little, really emotion for my ends here also. So Young, thanks for, bringing your all self to this conversation. I really appreciate that. I have two last questions, for you. All right. And you are a great thinker, also a great doer. And then my wife and I, we in the passion of help people to improve their ability to think first. And I know that you say that the doing is more important because of the knowledge. It's just the knowledge. Right? Everybody will have that knowledge, right? But I'm still like to understand the principle first, because when every good change or bad change also happen because the way we think. So over the years, how have you helped yourself to grow your ability to think?
First of all, I don't think it's all about doing. You have to think first. If you don't think
Okay.
first, you don't want people to be doing a lot of things without thinking. That's dangerous. Yeah. So I also believe everything starts with knowledge and words. You understand, you make meaning of concepts, and you have to think about it and process it before you can apply things and do them. So there is a process, to transformation. You start with your mind, right? And our minds are extremely powerful. And the processing of that is so important. So I'm always learning new things. So I think, and I'm always challenging things. So when I listen to things that people tell me, I constantly criticize, or not criticize what they're saying, but I critique it. I critique, is this true? Is that your opinion? Is that fact? And then I will research to find out if what they're saying is validated by other information. So I'm constantly critically analyzing the barrage of information that we're getting every single day. Fake news. I don't take all the news of what people say as fact. Absolutely not. In fact, I assume it's probably biased. All the things that are happening in politics in the world, I assume that the truth is somewhere in between the extreme left, the extreme right view, and both are sharing, like they're looking at the elephant from their perspective, but they don't see the full elephant, So I really strive to look to see as many perspectives as I can to see the elephant. And I think none of us can see the full elephant, right? From all perspectives, right? Because some of us are seeing it from the back and we only see the tail. Some of us see from the front and only see the trunk. And both are not wrong, because from their perspective, there's a trunk and a tail. So I think the idea and knowledge and thinking, critical thinking, is such an important part in perspectives. So I travel around the world so I can understand different perspectives. I've been to North Korea. And I'm criticized for going to North Korea. And they say, why do you go there? I say, because I want to understand how they see the world and their perspective. I want to think critically about, before I make decisions, I want to understand, are you seeing the tail or the trunk? Because I can assert that my view is correct, and I can argue that it's a trunk. If I don't even realize or have the wisdom to realize that you're standing in the back and you see the tail, then it's foolishness.
Yeah.
So that's why I spent a lot of time thinking. I don't give strong points of view to assert that it's the trunk, because that's unwise. So I will try to understand different points of view. I constantly look at views, and I'm challenging my thinking all the time. I'll give one crazy story of what I've done, and I do encourage everyone watching this to do it. I'm American, and the American politics is probably another K-drama series, because it's so dramatic and emotional, up and down. And I spent time on the KKK website. Do you know the KKK?
Yep.
So the KKK is the Ku Klux Klan. and they are a white supremacist group in the US. People might wonder, why am I going to the KKK website? Because I want to understand. I want to understand their point of view and their perspectives of why they feel so strongly about what they feel. And I think in society, if we were to stop and pause to think, not just from our head, but also from our hearts, what is it that connects us and what is it that separates us? I think that process of critical thinking is extremely important for humanity and for human flourishing, actually, going back to the main topic.
Yeah.
And so I spend time being uncomfortable. It makes me very uncomfortable to read certain articles. It makes me very uncomfortable to watch certain videos, but I force myself to watch them so that I can understand perspective and then I can critique it. What is it about what they said that I agree with? What is it that I don't agree with? Why do I disagree with that? And then I form my own points of view.
Wow. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. And I agree with you that, you know, if we can stop, pause for a second, using our head and our heart to think and put ourselves in different perspective and look at if a lot of people can do it that way, then how beautiful the world's gonna be, right? And I really hope, our humanity will lead into that directions. And that's why we need a lot of people like you out there to keep leading the change, creating, be the example for the people to see, to believe, and to follow. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ha. I appreciate that.
Last question.
Yeah.
So we traveled the past. We know what you are doing now. So it's not fair. We're not going to the future. Okay. Is there anything that So Young is doing? It's exciting. So you want to share with us? So together we can celebrate with you in advance.
Sure. I think we're on I think we're on this, trajectory, towards billions of lives. And I think what I'm really excited for in the future is how do we empower so many people around the world to think differently. And if we could revolutionize together, I cannot do anything by myself. I'm very, very conscious of that. But if we can together, with you, with people watching this podcast or other people, if we together could revolutionize and elevate how we communicate using better tools to elevate human flourishing, that's what I see in the future. Like, so I think we're getting there, and we've just embarked on this journey, So I think we're in the early steps, but we need fuel, we need people to actually help catalyze this movement. And I do hope it's going to be a movement and not just a product, or it's much more than that. It's a new way of thinking. And so I do hope that we can revolutionize the way that we communicate, because if we do, if we can, I do think that that would have an amplifier effect for really creating an opportunity in a space for people to flourish.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And I hope that I will be a part of that journey of you. And I say that we had a last question for you, but I just received a text message from my speaking coach. Okay. And she remind me about asking a bizarre question for every interview that I have. And, so is that okay if I ask? Yes.
Go for it.
So are you still
You've
playing?
already made me cry. You've already asked me lots of things. So everything is open.
Yeah. Are you still playing piano?
I am, but not publicly. But I
Ah,
don't play very often. So yeah, I would like to replay again.
beautiful. And you are the thinker, you are the doer also. So that moment of jumping the clip, right? If you want to play the piano more often, I would love to see you play it in public instead of alone. Right? Play it for your team, play it for your loved ones, your friends, your mentors. Play it and then share it in Gnowbe, right? It's a good idea to do.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. Thank you for inspiring me and reminding me of my love and passion for music.
And when you do that, please tag me. Please let me know.
I
All
will do
right.
that.
So it's wonderful talking to you, and thanks a lot for sharing your story with us. And I'm sorry for some moment in there that that you are not comfortable, and then I saw you holding back your tears, and I hope that you enjoy the conversation and it's designed like that. And I really hope to see you in person one day. I cannot hug the 10-year-old so young, but I can hug you who you are now, and it's gonna be a big hug. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been such an authentic, enjoyable conversation, and very few people can bring me to tears. So I think that's a gift that you have. You have a natural gift of bringing out the humanity in people. So thank you for touching me through this conversation. I really was quite blessed by this dialogue.
Thank you very much. You have a wonderful day and keep doing great. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.